Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad you're back again for this third quarter. I told you my goal in this third quarter were to find guests that would help either drive your business forward, or for some of you, you're thinking about you want to be business ownership. You want to do entrepreneurship. So today I've got that guest that can really help us think about our business in multiple ways if you already have a business, but also if you're looking to get into business, maybe you'll get some great tips there too. So Adam, it is great to have you on the podcast, but would you share with our listeners today, what problem will you help them solve?
Thank you so much, Gary. So I am here to, number one, more importantly, see if you're right for the franchising industry, because there's a big misconception about my industry. They think it's McDonald's and French fries and being the one that's in the back that's working with patties or something. I work with brands in 75 different industries, right? But number two, if you are right, to just kind of really to help you to narrow it down, because there's so many businesses out there and it's just hard to find the right one. I believe that people look at franchises the wrong way. The way people look is they might see something advertised somewhere and they dig deep into that franchise. Whereas in my opinion, the way you should be doing it is asking someone like me to help you to find the right fit first based on characteristics, and then dig deep in those three, as opposed to spending a lot of time and wasting time on something that probably isn't a fit to begin with.
That's great advice. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because we're going to dig into it, because it's going to help even existing business owners, I truly believe, because I think there's some things that franchises do that existing businesses really need to hear. And then for those people, if you're out there thinking about, you'd like to either add another business, or maybe you're looking to get into the entrepreneurship business, this conversation is definitely for you also. So Adam Goldman is a franchise consultant who's an experienced investor. He's a serial entrepreneur, he's a franchisee, and a master franchisor. So a lot of things that Adam has done. But Adam, I think the best place to start, if you're okay with, I looked at your website, got some information, and I told him earlier, a great website that he does have there, but really sharing your story, because you've done it. So, I think sometimes people think a consultant, people think, oh, but they've never really been in the trenches, and you've been in the trenches. So would you share a little bit of your story with us?
Absolutely, Gary. So if I look back at my work career, I never fit into corporate America. It just didn't feel right, and it wasn't a great fit. I've always been a guy that wanted to kind of venture out on my own, but I always had a hard time to scale businesses. I was really good at following process, but not necessarily as good at like creating this process to make a business scalable. So a long time ago, actually, it was 14 years ago, I still own a real estate investment company. And I was actually talking to my friend. He's like, you should really talk to my friend. She's going to give you some great advice and about what's next in your career. I didn't know what I wanted to do after I had gone ahead, and things were getting hard in the real estate business after the Great Depression of 2008. And I was just kind of like, okay, what do I do next? And I didn't really know much about franchising at all. She gave me, as a coach, she gave me three really, really great options. I gravitated towards an office cleaning master franchise for the Houston market. And that means that what I did was I had accounts, different commercial buildings that were my accounts. And what I did is I sold these accounts to potential franchisees that clean these buildings with their employees. So I was a franchisor, a franchisee. That went really, really well for quite a long time. And then I just kind of was in a situation where it was great, really fun to build, but not as much fun to maintain. And so built this thing up, and it just got harder and harder because we had so many new clients already to kind of grow it. It's easier when going from 0 to 1, but to go from 1 to whatever 40 clients to 45 clients, that's a much harder situation to be in. And my neighbor gave me an unsolicited offer for the location, and just kind of stumbled into franchise coaching. And I've been doing it now for 7 years plus, 7.5 years now, and just really, really love the idea of making these matches between great franchise brands and potential franchisees. And frankly, a lot of my candidates don't even know anything about franchising and don't even know if they're a fit until we dig in and we realize that they are or not a fit.
Yeah, I can see how your experience, though, with doing it makes you a great coach consultant of people that's looking, because I'm sure there's a lot of missteps that people make. And would you mind sharing? I mean, I'm sure you know one or two missteps. I think one of the things we talked about is sometimes people get really involved in one franchise, or they do a lot of research, but is it the right fit? And how do you kind of go through that process to be able to find a franchise that you think would fit you? Because for every person, it's a little bit different depending on what some of their skill sets is and what their interests are, would you say?
So absolutely. So my process is customized and personalized, right? And so the way that the process works is, first I speak to someone and I can tell within 5 or 10 or 15 minutes if they're a fit or not. It's things that I'm looking for is how much they have and resources, and we can talk about that later in the podcast. There's kind of a misconception that you need to spend millions of dollars on something like this, and I have plenty of great businesses that are really on the low side, about $125,000 or $150,000 all in on the low side. And then we figure out whether or not they have enough time, right? Sometimes, even if you're an executive, right? We have franchises that are all the way from semi-absentee all the way up to owner-operator that are full-time businesses. I mean, look, you could be in a situation where if you don't have any time at all. I've had dual income families where they have 40 to 80 hours per person per week, and they just don't have enough time. You need to have 5, 10, 15 hours at the beginning at a minimum. And then we just kind of dig in more and find out what characteristics they're looking for. I'd say the biggest challenge that people have when they're looking in is they're looking at businesses, they dig deep, and it's probably things that from a time perspective, there are few, not few, but there are certain franchises that really are not built to be semi-absentee owner type concepts with a manager at the beginning. But the biggest mistake I see is people just really dig deep into something. Let's say it's a restaurant. I just don't believe restaurants are ever semi-absentee because there's so many moving parts. That would be the biggest issue.
Yeah, I could see that, because really trying to find that right fit, and really there's multiple ways you can go knowing what you want, because some people want to be in the day-to-day operations, so they can handle something that has that capability, like a restaurant. I've owned a lot of different businesses, Adam, but restaurants is not one of them. And to me, that would be the hardest business that's out there. But that's my personal take there. But there's so many different options that you can get into. You mentioned it a little bit, and I'd kind of like to go there now, because I think sometimes that misconception, people hear of the big names in the franchising, that's done it, and they say, well, I got to have $1 million. So they put themselves out of the game right away, and they think franchising is not for them. So would you share with us, you don't have to give any specifics, but you talked about it even just before this, saying, you have some $125,000 to $150,000 you can get into a franchise. Let's kind of dispel that myth of that it's too expensive for me to do. How would you do that? And that it's too expensive, I guess, is the word I'm kind of thinking.
So Gary, let's talk about financing too, right? Because there is different financing avenues available for investors, right? So things such as 401k rollovers, or even sometimes franchisors go ahead and allow for financing. But look, I mean, we're in a situation where if you look at a range of franchise, let's divide them into brick and mortar retail, meaning anything with a storefront, and non-storefront. So if you look at storefront, that might be over $1 million for McDonald's. If you have a boutique fitness type concept that has a small footprint, that might be $200,000 to $250,000 in Southern Missouri. If you're putting that together. And then if you're looking at things that are non-brick and mortar businesses, service businesses, which are very interesting and many times recession resistant, but not necessarily very glamorous, and things that have a quick start, That could be as low as $125,000. Now, I live in Houston and we have a lot of mosquitoes. So if someone has got a tight budget, I say, look at mosquito spraying, right? I mean, very high margin that would make you blush, right? And very low entry point, all in about 125.
Yeah. And recurring clients, you're
Yes.
in a client base. Once you build that client base, mosquitoes don't come back. You don't just wipe them out one time. You kind of have to keep up that process. So that's, I think, so important for people to realize, because I don't know about others, but I think some people get in that myth that thinking, oh, it's out of my league, it's out of it. And there's so many different options that's out there. That's one thing I liked about yours. I forget the number exactly, but I think you said, you have over 75 different options that's available to people. So you're really acting as that consultant to find out what is their needs, what's going to be best for them, how are they going to operate in the business, or are they going to be they just going to put some time in and they're going to have somebody else run it. So I think that's a real benefit to people to think about, because it's really very similar to what you said in your opening is, like eMath. One of the biggest advantages, I would say, and I'll let you say what you can add to it, or you can delve into your own. One of the big benefits I see in franchising is they normally have that systems and processes down. And
Yes, you're buying a system and a brand.
yep. And you have that down. Share with our audience how valuable that is, because you even mentioned it in your opening. And that's been the greatest challenge I see with business owners I work with, as they want to scale their business. That's their greatest struggle. We talked about it this morning in a mastermind session that I had with a group of men. And that was one of the big topics that was talked about, is getting those processes and procedures in place.
Gary, it's invaluable. And the reason why the system's invaluable with the right sort of franchise is, frankly, you're not able to scale without that, without these operations. And I've had people that have come to me 3, 6 months or 3 or 6 years, right, after going ahead and placing them. And they say, thank you so much, Adam, for placing me with X company. And the reason why is because they have these systems in place, I've saved all this money and all these mistakes that I would have otherwise made if I was trying to figure things out on my own. People tend to underestimate how hard it is to start a business from scratch, and also underestimate how important it is to have a great system that's working.
I agree with that one. I've started many businesses by scratch, and whew, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of sweat equity that goes into it. And not all of those were successful, because, to be quite honest, we couldn't get over that hump that's there. I think one of the other things that we've got to think about and talk about, people think, well, though they understand or they've heard from somebody about franchises, but do I really make money because I've got to pay those fees? And different franchises are all set up differently, what you pay back to the franchisor and stuff. But let's talk about that. How can I really make money? You talked about, and it doesn't have to be mosquito, but in a type of business like that, what it really allows me, and what can I expect, in that type of, it all depends on effort, but how can I make money by going through the franchising method?
So that's a great question. I mean, the number one thing you need to do is to pick the right business, right? Even if it's a franchise business and it's great systems, if it's a low margin business, probably not a good fit for you, right? So when I work with my candidates, I'm trying to find things that have high margins so they can make money. And look, at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you're paying out. It's about how much money you're putting in your pocket, right? So certain businesses I've seen out there have really, really high margins, and that's great. Right. So I would say pick the right margin if you're looking to do this.
Yeah, I love that idea. Really find out which ones gives you the margins you need, and then find out in your marketplace, do your homework of your market research. It wouldn't be good to get in the mosquito business if we're in an area that doesn't have any mosquitoes. So Houston does. So you want to find a market that fits the market that you're trying to go into. Adam, I thought the other thing that it would be really to talk about, and you kind of shared this earlier too in your opening, talking about how much time I have to commit. Because like I know people on this podcast, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this. They already have a business. But I always talk about also one thing that entrepreneurs always should think about is really when they are having a business that has matured more, maybe they should have multiple streams of income. And, when they think of multiple streams of income, some people think about, rental properties. And I think that's a good one. I'm into that area myself. But there's other ways to do multiple streams of income too, because if you know business, and you talked about some, doesn't require you to be always in that business. How much time do I need to commit, as a franchise owner, and what's expected of me, and I know it varies but give us some of that groundwork and that lay there, that if I'm someone that I already have a business, but I'm trying to expand and want to get into another business, but I don't have 40 to 60 hours to give every week to that. Is that a possibility?
So look, I meet so many capable people in corporate America, right? And also people that are entrepreneurs that have one business. They have such great savvy, right? I mean, the number one skill I think is someone that can lead and manage people. And I know people like that, right? And so if you have that skill set, you potentially could hire someone to manage a business. You could be the person that's on the business, not in it. You need to spend 5 or 10 hours per week, maybe a little bit more at the beginning. Maybe you have a spouse that could spend more time and have a leadership role in this business. And you can absolutely do great with that business. I see it all day long, but you have to have the right sort of skills and acumen when it comes to business. So, I mean, I have businesses that require you to be an owner operator, but I actually even have some that don't have any employees at all, right? And that's actually really fascinating. Again, misconceptions in my industry. You got to spend all this time. I mean, there's such a range between not absentee, but semi-absentee all the way to owner operator.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys that business owners forget that have a business, depending on how they're doing, a lot of them have some of the back end office. As I grew my companies, that became the benefit. They no longer had to deal with payroll, accounting, some of those functions, because I had that centralized. And if you have that capability within your business already and you add a business, it'd be on separate books and everything else. But you can have those same group of people that's in your company now doing those books, and the people that's really doing the marketing and sales and delivering the service. That's all they have to really take care of, is that end of it. So there's some real synergies that can come when you add a business. So for an entrepreneur that's out there listening and wondering, is there an opportunity for me to add something to my portfolio? This may be another way that you can add something to your portfolio, because you sometimes have more resources than somebody that has not started that part.
Absolutely. Every year I have someone that buys more than one business from me. And I actually feel better if it's a business that's not related to the other one, right? I mean, kind of going out there, mosquito spraying and concrete resurfacing, or swim school and I don't know, blinds installation. It's just actually cool to kind of, and I think that franchising can, especially if a back office. I mean, I have people that have a back office and they say, hey, look, we're bored with this business. This is going great. We have the capacity. Let's add on a pool servicing business to our portfolio, please.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion there. Now tell me, I don't have all the questions. What's one of those common questions you get from people that you think we need to make sure we discuss on the podcast that people hear? I mean, we've talked about there's a variety out there, so the opportunity is there. But what's something that would really help our listeners if they're thinking about this, kind of take that next step forward? And then we'll talk a little bit also, because you've got a nice cost-free, no obligation opportunity that they can talk to you and stuff, and I'll share that. But what's something that I missed that I should ask you, because I'm trying to always think like the listener, what are they thinking on their end? What's some of
So
the
thank you so much, Gary. The one thing that we didn't talk about is, how do you scale your business, right? I think that's an important question when you're looking at different brands. If you buy a brick and mortar business, whether or not it's a fitness studio, the way you scale that is you go ahead and you open another location, right? Which can be expensive. If you have a brick and mortar business, right, the way you potentially scale is you get one more truck. Let's use the mosquito spraying, right? And that's not that expensive to go ahead and to scale it. So I think there's another misconception that if you make a low investment, that it's hard to scale. I would frankly disagree. In many ways, it's easier to scale with a smaller non-brick and mortar business than it might be to scale with a more expensive one.
I think that's so important because scaling gets you so many more opportunities that's there. And especially if somebody's looking for this as they're adding to another business. I mean, if they've already been successful in business, that's one of the things you're going to want to do is kind of take it to that next level. That's always one of our dreams that we have. You've got a nice call to action that I wanted to tell people about, and you can explain a little bit more. But as a coach, you offer a cost-free obligation. It's a free service that enables them to really explore business ownership. So can you explain that a little bit of how they can connect with you? And if they want to just explore this opportunity, how can they do that?
So look, go to the website franchiseadam.com, book a 15-minute chat. If I don't think you're a fit, I'll let you know, right? If I do think you're a fit, what would happen is I'd ask you to fill out a survey, and then we kind of go through the process together. My service is always free. If I make a successful match, it's the franchise brand that pays us a commission, not you. And that's my call to action. The other website that I have is franchisecoach.net, which has lots of information about our services and our successes that we've had over the past 7.5 years.
Yeah. And I would tell you, go to the website. There's a lot of great information, and he has a very good website. So if you're a business owner and you want to look at a good website, I would tell you, I truly believe Adam does, because it's clear, concise, it's easy to follow, but a lot of great information there for you to get some blog information. He has his own podcast. So if you're thinking about this and you want to learn a little bit more, share your podcast that you have, Adam.
Got it. Well, the podcast, haven't done it for a few years. Forgive me.
Okay. That's okay. But you got some great info up there.
That's right. That's right. The info's on the website.
So go check that out, and it's there. But the website is franchisecoach.net. It'll be in show notes, but please check that out. All that'll be in show notes that's there. Adam, before I let you go, and he's also on LinkedIn, so you can connect with him there, and we'll have those links for you all on his show notes. Adam, before I let you go, I ask every guest this question. What's your best advice you would give to business owners? And I'll even let you say, what's the best advice you would give to maybe people that want to be a business owner or business owners? I'll let you decide how you want to take it. So
one of my favorite people in general is, I really enjoy Nate Silver, the guy that came up with 538. He's fascinating to me, the whole idea of risk. He's a poker player, right? And one of the things that he says is that probably 80 to 90% of us have let fear get in the way. We don't take as many risks as we should take, right? So what I would say is that my advice to someone that wants to be a business owner, or that is a business owner and is kind of has trepidation about adding additional ones, is realize that you're probably in that 80 to 90%. You're probably not an Elon Musk that is probably too risk-seeking. And I think it makes sense for you to kind of reevaluate and look at things and just say, wait a second here, am I really taking enough risk in my life? Can I take on one thing else? And what's the worst case scenario, right? I mean, if I'm investing in something and it doesn't go, what's the worst that can happen to me? Do I get any value in that? Because I think a lot of failures are positive things as well, even if it doesn't go the way you plan.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I tell you, they say all the time, people are asked when they're 80 years old, what do they miss? And something that they wanted to do, they regret that they never did it. So what is it for you? If it's business ownership, entrepreneurship that you want to do, I don't care if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, now's the time. Remember, Colonel Sanders didn't develop Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was in his, 60s or 70s. So you could be that individual too. So great advice, Adam. I truly appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing information about franchises and really just about businesses. Again, check out his website at franchisecoach.net. And Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gary.
I'm glad everyone's here. Now, my action for you, I always give you an action. My action is, if you're thinking about getting into a business, take Adam up on his offer and go ahead and do that 15-minute call. He'll tell you if you think you're qualified or not, and then you can decide if you want to go through the process. That makes a difference. But let's move forward, because I tell you, you can hear all about the economy, or it's an election year, or why you shouldn't do something. The only person that's going to help you move forward is yourself. And I'm going to tell you, you have to follow yourself and decide if you want to make those dreams happen, go make them happen. Make it a great day. Come back next week and we'll have another great guest. Thanks for joining us.
Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.